Hey kids, imagine your therapist ghosted all 5 of his kids and blamed civilization for their problems, and then wrote a best-selling book on how you should live. So let me tell you about this absolute disaster of a man named Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So basically, he was a philosopher and writer and walking red flag with abandonment issues, and somehow a major reason you have the right to complain about society on the internet today. So he was born in Geneva in 1712, in the golden age of powdered wigs, untreated diseases, and men naming their horses after gods while not knowing how soap works. Anyways, so tragically, his mom died 9 days after he was born. 9, life barely started and already said, "Nope, I'm out." Then his dad stuck around just long enough to dump a bunch of ancient books on him like, "Here, kid, read Plutarch and become someone else's problem," before getting into a dumb legal fight and bailing. So little Jean-Jacques basically just wandered around, raised by vibes, trauma, and whatever enlightenment version of YouTube was. He probably staring at clouds for 3 hours and writing poetry about how much he hates cities. Why do all deep thinkers go straight for society is the problem? Maybe touch some grass, my guy. And oh boy, that hatred of civilization, that became his whole personality. While other philosophers were like, what is the nature of truth? Rousseau was out there screaming, everything sucks because people invented chairs and property. And you know what? Sometimes he had a point. But Jesus, he said it like a man who'd just been personally betrayed by a coffee shop loyalty program. He was like, oh no, they only gave me 1 stamp after 5 lattes. Civilization was a lie. Anyway, so now let's talk about his love life, which, to put it kindly, was an absolute flaming garbage barge. When he was a broke teenager, he got taken in by this older woman, Madame de Warrens. And at first you're like, mentorship, how nice. No, she basically became his mommy and his sugar mommy and his girlfriend. Like, it turned into a soap opera real fast. He even called her maman, which, I'm sorry, what the actual Freud, dude? That's not romance. That's a full-blown therapy arc waiting to happen. And this man was obsessed with her. Like he wrote poems and cried and stared dramatically out windows. He probably composed entire symphonies in his head when every time she made eye contact with another man. This isn't love. It's the 18th century's equivalent of accidentally liking to your ex's 8-year-old Facebook post. But surprise, surprise, it all imploded because she was an independent woman who slept with whoever she damn well pleased. And Rousseau was a clingy, emotional piñata who couldn't handle it. So he left heartbroken. And he convinced society had wronged him again, while she was probably like, thank God that emo goblin finally left. So what's a heartbroken, overthinking philosopher to do next? Yep, you're thinking right. He shack up with a woman who can't read or write, of course. So here enter Thérèse Levasseur, a laundress and very quiet and loyal. Apparently Rousseau's idea of emotionally safe. They stayed together for 30 freaking years, which sounds stable until you hear that this dumbass dumped all 5 of their kids at an orphanage like he was just too busy being deep and misunderstood to be a parent. So 5 kids gone. No visits, no birthdays, no child support, no regrets. He was like, I'm not rich enough to raise them. Plus they might get corrupted by society. So like, bro, they're children, not iPhones. Just say you didn't want to be a dad and move on. Imagine being so allergic to parenting that you turn your own kids into a government group project. And then this man had the unmitigated balls to write books on parenting. Yes, parenting. After ghosting his entire gene pool. That's like dropping out of school and then publishing How to Harvard. Anyways, despite being an emotional forest goblin, he starts writing philosophy and somehow it slaps. He writes discourse on inequality and it's basically like property is theft, civilization is a scam, and the natural man is pure. And people are like, damn, who hurt you? And Rousseau's like, everyone, but especially Voltaire. And then comes The Social Contract, his magnum opus. Drops the iconic line, man is born free and everywhere he is in chains, which honestly sounds like something someone would tweet after getting dumped by someone who calls themselves an empath. It was basically his full send against monarchy, elitism, and rich people hoarding all the nice chairs. He believed the general will, aka what's best for the group, not just individual jackasses, should guide society. A bold idea, revolutionary even, kinda utopian, also kinda easily twisted into authoritarian nightmare fuel. But hey, that's future people's problem. So now, while all this was happening, Rousseau was beefing with literally everyone. Like Voltaire roasted him so hard it left burn marks on the paper. And Diderot, who used to be his buddy, was like, this guy's nuts. And Rousseau was in true toxic Facebook ant fashion and decided they were all conspiring against him. He thought printers were altering his books to sabotage him, thought the government was trying to silence him. So basically had main character syndrome before it was cool. Imagine writing a breakup poem and then accusing your ex of being part of an international conspiracy because she didn't text back. That was this guy. So eventually he pulled a full-blown I'm going off the grid and moved to the countryside to be alone with his thoughts and his paranoia. It's like every guy who says I hate drama and then starts 12 new ones before lunch. And despite alienating everyone, despite being a neurotic weirdo who would probably cry if you asked him to do the dishes, the man's ideas lit a fire under the world's ass. And you know, kids, the French Revolution was practically fan fiction based on his work. His ideas about freedom and equality inspired democracies and rebellions and Reddit arguments centuries later. Like this guy who couldn't keep a single friend parent his own kids, or emotionally handle a breakup helped to shape modern government. Make it make sense, right? And then, because apparently he hadn't dumped enough emotional chaos onto the world, he wrote his autobiography. It was called Confessions, and it is hands down one of the most awkwardly honest, messy, dramatic-ass tell-alls ever written. Imagine if someone gave a philosopher a Tumblr account and zero supervision. And he goes on for pages about his kinks, his insecurities, that one time he flashed a woman in the street for fun and got off on the humiliation, and a whole bunch of, look how noble and pure I am. Also, I might be the worst person alive, but that's society's fault. It's like watching someone trauma dump and humble brag in the same sentence. I'm just such a deeply emotional genius that I had no choice but to abandon my kids and cry in the forest for 6 months. Critics read it like, yee, is he okay? And Rousseau was like, no, but I'm interesting, right? Sir, you are a sentient therapy bill. So eventually he died in 1778, probably from a stroke or possibly suicide. Or maybe just the universe finally going, I don't know. Okay, that's enough. Sit down. But get this. He's buried in the freaking Pantheon in Paris, next to Voltaire, the man who hated his guts, like some posthumous sitcom where their ghosts are just arguing for eternity. So kids, if you're an emotionally unstable, pants-averse nature goblin with mommy issues, with zero parenting instinct, and the ego of a SoundCloud rapper with one decent track, congrats! You might just be the next great mind of Western philosophy.